got something for you.
What's this?
It's a turtle dove. I have one, you have one. As long as we each have a turtle dove, we'll be friends forever.
Piers, welcome to the program. Sorry for the little technical difficulty.
Well, no, it turns out that you're almost impenetrable to my tech system, other than this one laptop, which belongs to one of my team, that we now presume is some kind of PSYOP guy. So we've got through.
All right, so Piers, you famously didn't say the F word, but you actually ended up having the woman on your program, which I thought was really honorable, who was put in prison, had 9 police officers arrest her for saying the F word on a text message after she was beaten. What did you learn from that? Her name's Elizabeth.
Well, I was pretty shocked when Tucker sprang that story on me. I didn't know the story. I hadn't seen it. It didn't get anything like the media coverage it ought to have got, and it should get more coverage now because it just seems so
funny
ridiculous.
How that happens.
Yeah, exactly. It seems so ridiculous that she's a young woman. She's a care worker, works in a care home, wants to be a registered nurse over here, and the bottom line was she says, and I've no reason to doubt her having interviewed her, that she'd been beaten up by a guy. She was getting treatment in hospital, including for head injuries, and that they had a mutual friend, another woman who was a friend of both her and of the guy who had beaten her up, and that she was venting from the hospital where she was getting treatment for the abuse she'd suffered to this other woman. And that in the course of venting, she used the F word, and I choose not to say it. People can say it if they want. It's up to them. It's a free country. But she used that word.
Because she's getting arrested. You say it's a free country, but I'm in a free country.
I'm coming to that point. So I'm just saying.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry.
You are a free country. So I am perfectly able to say it in the confines of this show. But what it turns out is it would be very precarious, clearly, for anyone in Britain following what happened to this woman to say it in Britain. And that is completely outrageous. So the short version of what happened to her is that the woman she sent this rant to, and she was ranting about what had happened to her, about what this guy had done to her, in the course of which she uses this F word. And in the course of that, the woman then calls the police. And it was actually 11 or maybe 12 police turn up at her house. The door was unlocked, so they came in while she was having a bath, naked in her bath. Only one of the 12 police was a woman, and all these guys rampaged up into her bathroom. I mean, it's completely invasive and appalling, and when you consider what she was supposed to have done, outrageous. So she then gets taken off, she gets prosecuted, and she's basically convicted. And she's given not a prison sentence, but a community service order. She has to attend classes and meetings. She has a criminal record and so on. And all for using a word where she comes from, in the north of England, she says a lot of people use just in normal vernacular. It's not intended as a homophobic slur. It can be used about straight people. It can be used just as a kind of this guy's, F, whatever. And she didn't mean it in a derogatory way against gay people, which is why in this country it is considered to be something you can't use. Now, this raises so many terrible issues in my country. It comes off the back, as you know, a series of attacks on free speech. We've had 12,000 people arrested for stuff they've posted or put into messages and so on. Yes. But the idea that in a free democratic society, you can't use a word like that to someone you know without potentially having 12 police officers racing into your house to arrest you when crime is on the rampage in my country is outrageous.
I know we're short on time here, but maybe you could correct me. I don't spend a lot of time traveling internationally. I don't go to England often, but I've grown up thinking that an English word for a cigarette is a fag. Is that correct?
Right. And actually, a faggot...
So is that a hate crime?
A faggot, if you use it about a foodstuff, which it is in parts of England, is not offensive at all. It's only when you use it against gay people that it's deemed to be a homophobic slur.
But then aren't you implying intent, as though the law somehow understands how someone is using a word, and the law is aren't you playing God then in this situation?
I think so. And of course, in America, none of this makes any sense. You can be very offensive, but you're not going to have the police raiding your home. Right. I mean, look, if I'd been smart, probably in the moment with Tucker, I'd have said, look, Tucker, there are words you wouldn't use. and I'd have said to him, you wouldn't use the N word, I don't think he would have done, right? So there are clearly, in any free democratic society, there are certain words that people don't use unless they want to reveal themselves to be proper racists, right? So we understand that. So there are clearly some limitations in normal society. But I do think in this case, she definitely didn't intend to use it as a derogatory slur against gay people, because the person she was using it about is straight.
And that's something that doesn't compute for us in America, is because even if you use the N word, or F word, or whatever, C word, or whatever ugly word you wish to use, you're not going to be arrested for it.
Right. And that's the crux.
That's
of the
actual freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is speech that I disagree with being said, that may offend me, but that doesn't mean that I get to shoot that person or kill that person or behave violently against that person or arrest that person, right?
Right. And we've just had this story of Graham Linehan, the Father Ted creator, the comedian, who, if you remember, posted some jokes on X, which were jokes about the ongoing farce of trans people occupying women's spaces and competing against women in women's sport and so on. And he's been at the forefront of campaigning against this, trying to protect women's rights, and I applaud him for it. And he put some jokes up, which actually were obvious jokes. They weren't that offensive, unless you're massively oversensitive. But regardless, they're jokes. He put them up in April, and 3 months later, he comes into the UK, and at Heathrow Airport, 5 armed police are waiting for him to arrest him. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. Now, the only small crumb of comfort is that in that case, the police, under huge pressure from the public backlash that came their way, said 2 things. One, we're not going to prosecute Linehan, but secondly, we're not going to prosecute anyone again for this kind of thing. So there is, I'm thankful to say, movement in the right direction on this, driven by public outrage that in a country that purports to be one of the homes of free speech, we now appear to be weaponizing it to the degree where you get arrested and put in a prison cell.
So how are you going to stay out of jail, given the fact that you're going to have Nick Fuentes on your show in a couple days?
Well, it's going to be very interesting.
How are you going to stay out of prison, Piers?
Well, that's going to be the big question. Spending an hour or 2 with Nick Fuentes. And, these are interesting questions because, of course, my show airs around the world. There are many parts of the world where none of this matters. In America, I'm not going to be arrested for my speech. But there are, as we know, the social media platforms have their own rules. In fact, the very F word we've been discussing is banned on X, for example, by Elon Musk, who's one of the kings of free speech. So if you use it on X, you get a warning, and if you keep using it, you'll get your account pulled. So so this is because, of course, X is a global social media platform. So there's lots of stuff going on around this issue of speech. Ultimately, though, I'm with you. You should be free to say whatever you want to say without being arrested. Doesn't mean you avoid accountability by an employer, for example. They can make their own mind up about whether they think you're a suitable employer for their business. But I do not think the state, through police, should be arresting people for things they say. And if you do that, then you become a police state and a totalitarian state of the kind that you and I would have hoped most people in the US and UK would profess to think would be horrific.
Very quickly here, do you then classify the current UK government as a totalitarian state?
Well, they're certainly behaving like it. And I want to see much, much stronger leadership from the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. I want to see him out there, front and center, attacking these kind of things when they happen and defending vigorously people's right to free speech, particularly in private communication. I mean, remember, this is a private text message. Yes. It would be like me saying it to you calling the police, and then 12 police in America turning up at my house to arrest me. It just wouldn't happen. So your First Amendment affords you far greater protection currently than the UK system is affording UK citizens.
I think it's extremely honorable. Obviously people took that debate between you and Tucker, and that thing went thermonuclear, and it was really funny, and everyone was sharing it. But your reaction was deeply honorable. You had that woman on your program to tell her story. Most people would have ran away or perhaps I don't know, just wanted to get away from the issue. You went head on and brought Elizabeth Kinsey on your show. I encourage everybody to go watch. You also just made a point, Piers, about the consequences of ugly speech. And I believe in that, by the way, especially with employers like the Oxford Union, for instance. Yeah. The president, George R. Barnier, perhaps I'm saying that incorrectly, but nonetheless, he celebrated the death of my friend Charlie Kirk, and he did so not once, not twice, 3 times. He joked about it. Charlie Kirk had just been at the Oxford Union debating him, and so you'd think there'd be at least some professionalism or some human decency there. You and I debate on your show. We often disagree. I often disagree with your other guests. It makes for, good, robust free speech environment. But this is monstrous, and he was given his job back. I think that he still holds the position after having, he's gone back and forth.
So just to clarify, he was the president-elect, so he was the incoming president, replacing the incumbent, and he was voted in and was going to take up the position. But to double down on what you just said, this guy stood opposite Charlie Kirk back in April, May at the Oxford Union, which is one of the most well-known and highly regarded debating societies in the world. Literally where people come together to debate different points of view. And he, in reacting to Charlie Kirk's shooting, and you're showing it now to your viewers, Charlie Kirk got shot, let's effing go, right? And then he also did LOL as another one. This was a guy celebrating someone being shot for exercising their right to free speech. And not just that, Charlie Kirk was the person that used to go in to university campuses up and down the country in America and sit and challenge people to come and debate with him and to prove him wrong. He couldn't be a better. So what they found, free and open exchange of views and opinions, and both parties expressing their right to freedom of speech and expression. So there they are together at the Oxford Union, and they're literally 4 months later, he's gleefully celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk. And luckily, the students who voted him in saw sense, and he's now not going to be the president of that union. Of course, he couldn't be. It's not a free speech issue. How can you be president of a debating society if you think it's fine and indeed something to celebrate if people are shot dead for their free speech? It's preposterous.
It is preposterous. It's something that I was alerted to actually a decade ago in England when Margaret Thatcher died. This was the first time that I saw the left take to the streets to celebrate the death of somebody that they disagreed with. It was radicalizing for me. Yeah. I believe this was 2015. Maybe I'm wrong on that date, but it was a while ago. It was the first time I've ever seen that, Piers. What is that exactly?
I actually thought that the reaction to Charlie Kirk's death from many on the left in America was almost as disgusting as the act of his murder in itself. Because I saw people who were professors at universities or doctors or nurses or teachers who were posting stuff on social media, glorifying and celebrating this murder, this cold-blooded murder of a young husband and father. Never mind anything else. That's what he was in his life, in front of his wife and kids. I mean, it was just extraordinary to me that people would want to be seen who are in positions of responsibility and in many cases caring for other human beings were prepared to boast about being so incredibly callous. But again, it comes back to accountability. Many of them lost their jobs. And people on the left immediately screamed, hypocrites, it's disgusting. Why are you calling for us to be cancelled? Actually, that isn't what happened. Their employers took a view that if you're a nurse or a doctor or a teacher or a professor and you glorify in the murder of somebody, you are not a fit person for your job. That's called accountability. It's not an infringement of your free speech rights. You're allowed to do it and you're allowed to say it, but you're not allowed to evade accountability, whoever you are.
Very quickly, Piers, I know that you have to go, but I just wanted to get your take on this since it caused quite a brouhaha on my timeline. You said that there's a lot of white English people that you would trade for a good weekly chicken tikka masala.
Yeah.
Would you trade any other groups of people in England?
Well, yeah, of course
for
I
food?
would. And nobody has actually asked me, so thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah,
who I meant by a lot of white English people. It was people like Tommy Robinson and his followers who'd been spewing the most horrific racist abuse in the last 3 weeks or so. And I would quite happily swap Tommy Robinson for a chicken tikka masala. The general point I was making is that I believe that my country, England, is not fallen, it's not stricken, it's not been invaded by foreigners. I believe there are genuine, legitimate issues in our country about the way immigration has been handled, but we are and remain a template, actually, of how multiculturalism can work. However, I have also been supportive of people like Robinson when they've been exposing the grooming gangs and things like that. I don't pretend there aren't issues with immigration. I do hit back at the idea that my country is fallen and that somehow England, or London in particular, has been run over, and it's like Armageddon here. Honestly, come to England, come to London, I'll take you out for a chicken tikka masala or a fish and chips, and you won't see a country that's fallen. But you will see that successive governments on left and right have woefully mishandled our immigration strategy. So look, it was a bit of what we would call in England, Benny, a wind-up. When you go fishing and you just go, and you catch a few people in your net. It was designed for people like Tommy Robinson, who, if he's watching, Tommy, if you have a problem with my joke, come on my show. You've been bottling it. We both know why you're bottling it. You prefer to do interviews with people who don't ask you difficult questions about what you stand for and what you've been up to. Come on the show and let's have it out. And we can do it over a chicken tikka masala.
So you would trade the grooming gangs, though, for
100%.
Yes.
Listen, there are bad people in my country and your country of all skin colors, all religious persuasions, all types of classes, and I would trade many of them in my country for a chicken tikka masala, as I would in the United States. So I'm really addressing, I think, a lot of the worst elements who talk about immigration, because I don't think it's been amplified in the correct manner. And what we've seen is a legitimate debate often being hijacked by extremists on all sides. And I'm making that point where I think we need to have a more measured, considered debate about what the real issues are and how we deal with it without tumbling into racism or, on the other side, defense of the indefensible with people who hid and covered up the grooming gang scandal for so long. Both to me are equally unpalatable, and I would swap both sides of that coin for a chicken tikka masala.
Piers Morgan proving why Tucker Carlson calls him the greatest proponent of the First Amendment and free speech in all of the whole of England. Ladies and gentlemen, with his new book, Woke is Dead, available now, a top bestseller in the entire world. You can follow Piers right here. He's got 8.6 million subscribers on X. Thank you, Piers, very much for your time.
Great to talk to you, mate. Thank you very much.
See you.